Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Richest Men in Town podcast. I'm Mike Freeman, and along with my good friend and co-host Tyler Gould, we're excited to welcome you to our little podcast project. Tyler and I are just a couple of middle-aged husbands and dads driven to live our best lives. We want to be better every day, so here we'll be sitting down with great people. Not famous people, but great people that we admire, to learn their secret to living the rich life. Probably not the rich life you're thinking of. Our guests come in humbled and surprised at the invitation and hopefully leave feeling proud and grateful, realizing just how good they really have it. So pull up a chair, stay a while, and raise a glass with us as we toast our guests to the richest men in town. Peter, Will.
What's up,
How we
Mike?
doing, guys?
Hey, Mike.
Hey, it's like the world is upside down here, Tyler. Like usually we warm up the room, our guest joins us, and here we are. I just had Sister Missionaries on the couch, and I pictured Abby Gould, and like, how am I going to kick them out?
Yeah, well, I'm glad you were. I'm glad you took care of the sisters, man. It's a good thing. That's a good thing. So we're just catching up, man. We were just talking about Peter's new hobby, which is he's playing the bass and he's getting ready to form a band.
True
So-
story?
Yeah, you got to be over 45 and you got to have no talent, at least one midlife crisis in the rearview mirror. So
I
How
guess
does
we're all
your
in.
guy, Peter. I might be your guy.
Hey, how does one form a band these days? Is it like a Craigslist thing, or like?
I don't know. I'm taking notes from Tyler on that.
I
Yeah,
mean, Tyler was probably like Sharpie in a bathroom stall, right?
Well, that's a different story altogether. But yeah, I mean, I did. That's not how I met my wife. But anyway,
You found a couple good times.
that's right. That's all. I mean, look, it's like you were saying, Will, earlier, though. It's like that idea of music. It is like the connector, man. And I think like my musical playlist nowadays is super eclectic, right? It's like Willie Nelson to, Tony Bennett to Rancid and,
Oh, yeah.
all kinds of crazy stuff. But I love it. And even with my own kids, it's like that's been a super connector for me and my kids. Just, I'll have them, Spotify shared playlists, and just popping songs in and out. And I love that, man. I love it.
You want my man card now or later?
Man, I feel like you give this thing up every week, man.
How many do you have?
Yeah, exactly.
The
I
problem
actually-
is Mike
Giving
has
them back
access.
to you.
He has access to a copy machine, so he just.
I actually walked in yesterday, coming in from a meeting or something, and Kelly's on the couch, and I go up to Google and say, "Hey Google, play Norah Jones."
I love Norah Jones, dude.
Norah Jones is like right now. Norah Jones is doing it. It is doing it for me
Yeah.
in lots of ways. Like,
Norah Jones is really good.
really good.
Yeah, there's a couple of duet.
So I get to keep my
she
card.
does.
I get to
Yeah,
keep my
you can-
card.
I mean, unless these two are going to revoke both our cards, I don't know. But
Not at all.
It's our
There's a time and
show. It's
place,
our
my
show. Hold on.
friends.
It's our show. They can't come on our show and revoke our cards.
that's true. That's true.
Come
No,
on. man.
I'm a big fan of Norah Jones. I like honestly any music on nowadays. There's a lot of ways I can justify a lot of different things.
Well, I owe you a couple of nickels because I have traded on that Toby Keith song that came up a couple of episodes ago a lot.
It's a game
Don't let
changer.
the old man in.
Don't let the old man in. Have you guys heard this song?
I don't think I ever have.
Oh,
Never
man.
heard it. Just heard you quote it.
Yeah, you got to listen to it. And
All right.
I love lyrically. I think it's awesome. But I think what's interesting too is Toby Keith he's pretty sick. So hearing him sing that song is like, it's pretty real, It's pretty
What's that
real.
going to do to my playlist though? If I put that on there, is that going
Oh,
to?
the algorithm.
It's totally going to screw up my algorithm, man.
Dude,
I'm convinced that all algorithms eventually end up at Jack Johnsonville anyway, so you're good.
you know what? I had that concern once, Peter, when I had young teenage daughters at home and my every car ride was Taylor Swift, and so, and that was back in the day when Spotify had like that feature where it would post what you're listening to on Facebook. So then people are just like, this dude just listens to Taylor Swift nonstop. The algorithm is screwed up in a big way. But
There are worse things than Taylor Swift all day.
maybe. I got look the Taylor Swift musically. Taylor Swift, I have to watch on Sundays during a football game. I can't. Like, I'm done, man. I'm over it. I've had enough. The Chiefs are
The bleed over, right? The bleed over. Like, hold on, you were in your lane and now you're in every lane.
Yeah, it's like worlds are colliding. It's like that Seinfeld episode. You know, worlds are colliding and I don't know what's going on, man.
It is, another one of those Mandela effects of the Hadron Collider. You know, it's just everything's out of its lane now.
Totally, yeah. The world's upside down and backwards. I don't know what's happening.
Gosh.
I turn on a football game and there's Taylor Swift staring at me. I'm like, what is happening?
Okay, so Peter's starting a band. Wilbur, what have you been up to?
Oh, I was just talking about my kids again. You know how they are. It's just if it's not the, I don't care how much money it costs me when they're out and away, because quite frankly, they're living life and experiencing things that they need to experience in their 20s, right? And they don't need to do it, on their own dime if they don't have to. I'm okay with it. Life's hard. Life's hard. They got to adopt some things on their own as we go through life, and that's going to come around. It's all good. But right now I'm happy. Things are good. I love
where can I sign up for Will to be my dad?
Yeah, I was going to say that's spoken like a man who's now the owner of a part contract for an apartment in San Diego.
Exactly.
That's what that is.
When you co-sign a lease, you can talk this kind of stuff.
That's right. Yeah.
And a car. I think there's a car you're trying to sell too, right?
Oh no, we sold the car.
We sold the car. Okay.
Yes. So yeah, it was beautiful, and we had this Pontiac that we've been trying to get rid of, and there's this big long story on it, when Lucas was driving it around when it was overheating, and it broke down in Sacramento, and had it towed back to Redding from Sacramento at $10 a mile. So yeah. $1,700.
No, famous
later.
last words. Hold on. Famous last
my
words were,
gosh.
okay, make sure it's reasonable.
Yes, right.
That's only $10. Deal. Right?
Obviously, I have to have a talk about what's reasonable with this kid, right? And then it goes into the shop, and a couple grand later, it's just like, this thing is just sucking money out of us. And so we're like, we're getting rid of it. And so we've had it on like for sale for like the last 5 months, and we finally got rid of it. This guy was like, I don't care what's wrong with it. I like the car. I can work on the car. I'm not even going to haggle on the price. Here's $4,000. And I was like, that's awesome. Thank you.
Yeah.
And so I'm excited that we got $4,000 out of this car. And Lucas is all lit up, and he goes, all right, what's my cut? And I was like, you still owe us $1,000, man. That's what your cut is.
Mike.
Man, that's a good lesson.
Well,
I've had that conversation with
the lesson
my
is
wife.
Don't give a 20-year-old your credit card number, and no form of oversight. Okay. Because
and the only guidance was reasonable.
I know.
Oh my God.
Credit card being accepted does not mean dad accepts.
Man.
Yeah, exactly. Any and all charges, dad will accept.
So Grace wants to come home in a couple of weeks, and so she reached out to her boss via text. I don't know about that move, with a request to get the day off. And the boss says, "Hey, sorry, just to be fair, you've taken a lot of days off." And so she shoots this text at us like, "This is what my boss said. Should I provide a little more clarification on like why I need the day off?" Like, no, rising generation, that's your boss. So I go into this whole explanation of like, no, what the boss says for a like, no, she doesn't need any more information to maybe change her mind. And then it's quiet. And then the text back from Grace is, I'll sleep on it.
Yeah, it was like, that was bad advice.
I'll take that under consideration.
I'll sleep on
gosh.
it. Like, dad doesn't know what he's talking about.
That is fun.
Old man has lost it.
I think one text back saying, "I don't think you understand. I really wanted to go home," really would have sealed the deal. You know?
You're right. You're right. You're right. Go on home. Just come back when you're ready to work. It's all good.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I got to tell you, it's interesting, right? Because I think, Peter, how old's your youngest?
Almost 14.
Almost 14. Okay.
Oh,
And
you guys
then-
are you guys are in the same
Yeah.
ballpark there.
I've got a 14-year-old at home. And all kidding aside, like this this has been I think we've talked about this, like, and Will, I think you alluded to this too, like having kids with different personalities. Like, I feel like I am reinventing myself in the parenting department now. And I'm grateful that I'm doing that, because I tried for a spell to just ram my way through.
How'd
And
that work out?
that did not work. It nearly,
Even though Tyler, your way is proven,
100%.
your way has proven results with other human beings,
100%.
right?
It has worked, but it is not accepted now. And but it's been, honestly though, it's been a huge it's actually been a huge blessing for me, because I have been forced to really kind of like take inventory of what is important, right? And what is not important, even though I may have elevated some things to a different, tier that they didn't belong in, and my youngest is teaching me that I need to be flexible. And honestly, it's been huge. It's been good for her and my relationship, but I think it's been better for me and my wife too. Like, I've become a softer version of myself in a good way. Now, right? In a good way. So,
Well,
I don't know.
I think Tyler, one of the this lines up with some things that we've been learning lately. Just that idea of maybe not even what is important, yes, but like, why is it important?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
like, do
absolutely.
I need this because I need other people I need it to look a certain way for other people? Like, or is this eternally important here in our house with no one looking? Right.
Yeah. And it's funny, because I guess I've decided that I'm not the guy that knows everything. Right. And that I need to bring people in to the mix that can help. And so that's been an interesting experience for me, in having, we've got a coach for my daughter. We've got all kinds of stuff going on. Right. And there are things that I would have never considered with the first three kids, because it was just a different animal altogether. Mm-hmm. And going back to the idea of trying to like force what I thought was right on everybody, I had to sort of like swallow my pride, let the ego go, and just say, what's going to be effective? What's going to be the best for this person's long-term development, health, whatever that looks like,
Well, not just that, but your relationship with your daughter too.
Yes.
Each one is so different and unique, right? And equal is not always what equity is, right?
Yeah.
And getting the same thing doesn't mean that you get the same love.
Yeah.
Getting an individualized experience where you are building that relationship. Now that's love, right? That's individualized for each of your kids. Your wife is going to experience you in a whole different way. That's powerful stuff, man. Yeah. And when we start to do that with all of our relationships, holy cow, can you imagine what that multiplier effect is? Because, when you can be genuine and authentic and bring that type of relationship to people you work with your kids, man, I mean, that's the stuff that's going to make the world go around.
Yeah. I love that 100%. And it's interesting, because I think I think I was looking at it almost like a mathematical equation, right? Like if you do 1 + 1, you're going to get 2, and then, and
Okay,
then we can
but
solve
hold
for
up.
X.
Like
But
Transactional.
we do that
Right.
everywhere.
Yeah,
We do that in church,
100%. Yeah.
right? Like, the gospel geometry, like the equation of like, increased obedience equals increased love, like, or increased blessings. We throw these formulas around all over the place. Like my question is like, why do we, uh, Tyler, I'm just hearing you letting us in on reaching out for other people to come in and help.
Yeah.
And why is it so hard to do that step? Why is it so hard to say, I don't have the answer here and I need help? Like if life is a battlefield, is that a song? No.
Well,
Love.
love.
Oh, I was gonna. Yeah.
Good try. Nice try. Nice try.
Yeah.
Life's a highway.
Is that little Pat Bennett title? Loves that. Okay.
That'll play us out at the end of this episode.
If life is a battlefield and I'm mortally wounded, it wouldn't make sense to be like, no, I got this, right? Like, I need help. But like, for whatever reason, maybe it's the scripts in our head, right? No, I've got this. I have a couple kids before this. I got this. I can figure this out. I've read a couple books, right? I've helped so and so. I think sometimes it's part of that tapestry of living, right? Like, wouldn't it make a better story if I reached out to a couple people that helped, and then I could have that connection, and maybe they're lifting me right now and I'm lifting them later, versus like, nope, everything's good at 1137 Lakeside. Don't come in. Everything's solid. We got it over here, right? That's a challenge.
I think like it totally is, and I think that for me, bringing someone in, right, to help and be part of that process was hard. But I think even more difficult is this is where, we really can, you guys can armchair, psychology all day long on this one. But like, it's easier for me to say, hey, can you come in and help so-and-so? But I still don't know that I'm 100% at the place where I can say to someone, hey, can you come in and help me? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And like, and if you called me, any one of you guys called me tomorrow and you said, hey, I need you to be on my front door, I'd be there. No problem. Without hesitation, I'd be there. But I don't know that I'd call any of you. And that's the reality, right? So it's like, what is that? What is that? Because I there's pride and there's ego and there's all this other stuff that's wrapped up in that, and this idea that I need to be able to handle my own stuff, and this is something that you should be able to take on and not have to worry about, right? Or not have to worry other people about. And man, when you're in the middle of that space where you feel like you need someone to throw you a lifeline, you feel it, but that lifeline's not getting released. You know what I mean? You're just like, well, I'm just gonna tread water till I drown, I guess.
I'll figure it out. I'll figure it out. Maybe
I'll figure it out. Yeah. And I think that leads to like a lot of things not being figured out.
Harder. I'll work harder.
It leads to like it's like my dog dug a hole in the backyard the other day, and I just went out there and shoveled some dirt on top of it. I was like, there you go. Problem solved, right? But the reality is, there's a whole lot more that needs to go into that to get that thing looking right again. But I think that if and I know I'm going down a rabbit hole here, but I think that if we're not willing to pull someone in for our own selves, how can we help anyone else around us? 100%,
it's kind of and I don't mean this in a disrespectful way. I just mean it's kind of an immature way of thinking, right? That's kind of a developmental thing that sometimes we get stuck in, even in high school, right? We go, my parents don't understand. They've never been 17 before. They've never been 15 before, right? And they think all these thoughts about us as individuals. They don't know what love is. They don't know what passion is. They don't know what embarrassment is. They don't, they don't understand that we were once just like them at their age, reaching out in the world, right? And I think sometimes we get stuck in that same thinking when it comes to asking for help, because maybe the person I ask won't understand. And if they do understand, maybe they're going to judge me for not having the tools to be able to handle this myself.
Yeah.
And so that becomes a frightening place to be. All of a sudden, you're exposing the tender underbelly of yourself to somebody,
Right.
and you go, man, do I trust this person enough to show them my weakness? And it's hard, man. It's super hard. But I think when we're willing to do that and step into that space and challenge our own thinking, that 9 times out of 10, we're really pleasantly surprised, and we grow from it, and we grow closer to people because we allow them to step into that space with us.
100%. Yeah. I love that. Yeah.
Well, I think a lot of times too, my thinking got me into the current situation. So me applying my thinking to get out of the situation is never going to work.
That's
because
genius.
I got me here, right?
Yeah.
So can I get somebody to come in with
like
some outside
a fish that
eyes?
swims into the net. You know what their plan is to get out of the net? Keep swimming. Right?
Well, and it's interesting too, because Mike and Mike, we had this conversation years ago. We had a mutual friend that was struggling, right? And we found out about this struggle, and it took us by surprise. We were both like, whoa, And I remember, Mike, you said to me, Tyler, if it goes sideways on me, I'm calling you. Like that's the commitment. I'm calling you. Right. And I think just to placate you, I said, yeah, I would call you too. No, I'm just kidding. but I think the sentiment is spot on. I just think that there's that. But there's so many good people that are willing to help, and that's the reality. I love your comment, Will. I think it's, there's a lot of depth to a relationship when you can be vulnerable, right? And give someone some trust.
Stop you? Can I stop you? Because that might have been a decade ago, right?
Oh, that was a long time ago. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that 10 years down that road, I don't know if I'm as quick to share that same answer.
Right.
Right. Like that was like, oh man, Tyler, if my world is on fire, I'm gonna be like, get over here.
Right.
I don't know if that's the answer anymore, and I don't know why. I don't know what's changed. Right? Is there more? Because there's only more at stake. Right? The stakes are only higher. We're only higher up on this mountain that we're climbing. Like if it does go south, I don't know if I'd be so quick. I think that voice would say, hunker down, man, hunker down.
Yeah.
Hunker down and work harder. Well, work harder takes the horse to the glue factory. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like work harder doesn't, what's that, boxer? Animal Farm?
Mm-hmm.
Boxer?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm just going to work harder isn't necessarily that answer, and unfortunately, I think it can perpetuate some things.
See, I think we need our tribes, man, and we need people in different capacities to support us in different ways, right? We have our family, yes, but you have that circle of friends that that in these situations, this is the dude I'm going to call, right? Or if I'm at work and something is not resonating with me, I know who I'm calling there too, Mike Freeman. So. So
call Peter. He'll be able to help you out.
Yeah. Actually,
Peter. Now that I've got your address on here. You're on the list. So
give me a call. I'll tell you something you don't want to hear.
That's all right. You know what?
Yeah.
Sometimes the biggest changes come from the things we don't want to hear, right?
That's right. Yeah.
And that's probably 10% or 20% of what holds us back is we know that the answer is something we don't want to hear.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, I agree with that totally. Yeah,
because it's easy to work until you take the horse to the glue factory, like Mike says. But man, being able to say, okay, I need to hear something I don't want to hear in order to get better.
Totally. And I think you're at that point you're shoveling dirt on the hole in the backyard, right? You're not addressing the actual problem and fixing anything. But and so I've walked us through this giant loop, but my point to all of this is that help has been great, and it's made a massive difference for us.
Mm-hmm.
And so for that, I'm super grateful, right? And look, I'm the first to admit, and I'll tell you this all day long, that that was my wife's, brains that brought us to this point. I probably came kicking and screaming to this point, but here we are, and it's been eye-opening on a lot of different levels.
Well, hey, I'm all about Seahawks propaganda these days. So can I share with you, gentlemen, this thought from outgoing Pete Carroll?
Yeah.
Okay. So the advice was, what advice do you have for the person coming in and taking your place? And every once in a while, Tyler, like I just have some RMIT lenses on, right? Like sometimes I'll read something, and it's like, that is so richest men in town, right? Like little nuggets. He says this: the essence of being as good as you can be is you got to figure out who you are. The essence of being as good as you can be is you got to figure out who you are. He continues, you got to figure out, in that relentless effort to get clear about what's important to you, what uncompromising principles do you stand by? What makes you who you are? So if you don't go through that process, if you don't do the self-discovery, then you don't have an opportunity to be your best, because you don't even know who that is. Interesting. So right, I got a little professional transition that I'm preparing for, and like this idea of like maybe stepping into a new role, and who is that person going to be, right? Who am I going to be in order to like clearly have that defined so I can be my best self? What do you guys think of Pete Carroll's advice?
Let's go with Peter first, since he's got the namesake.
It totally makes sense. I think that it's just like if you're going anywhere in general, you go to GPS a location, you're like, well, I want to go hit the Krispy Kreme down the street or whatever it is. Well, yeah, you can get there, you can see where it's at, but it doesn't do you any good if you don't know where you are. And if you're not real about where you are, then it doesn't, whatever, it doesn't matter where the destination is, you can't get there if you don't know where you're starting from. So yeah, I think, you gotta take that time to introspect and sit down and, what matters most. And some of that comes from, just life. It's conversations. It's sitting in dark rooms by yourself, or it's, dealing with work issues. It's sitting down with the kids. It's,
I think it's getting it wrong sometimes, right?
It's getting it wrong and figuring that out and figuring out that you got it wrong. Yeah.
You got it wrong. It's like, ooh, I don't like how that felt. Yeah.
I like that idea of I agree with you 100%, Peter. I love the idea of like, that, and that's something that I think we talk about a lot, just that honest, self-dialogue of where you are, right? It's not about picking yourself apart or beating yourself up. It's just about being honest, right? And saying, hey,
yeah,
there's some areas that I could improve on. There's some things that I need to be doing. There's some adjustments that need to be made. And if we're not willing to say that, man, that's an even harder place to improve from, right? Because then we're ignoring opportunities to make changes.
Back to Peter's analogy, right? Like let's say you don't do that. You don't do where you are, and you're like, okay, I'm going to crank this out. I got a plan. I'm on paper. I'm going to turn right. I'm going to turn left. I'm going to drive 7 blocks. If you don't know where you started,
yeah.
Like if you don't actually know where you are, all of that is a house of cards.
Yeah.
Yeah. You might end up at Whole Foods or some horrible place like that. And then, how are you going to get a donut there? So yeah, you got to have that. I refer to them as the non-judgmental observations. And I've talked to some people about it and they give me crap about it, but it's like, you got to be dead honest. Where are you at? What's going on? Because otherwise you're just fooling yourself. And, you don't want to be that guy driving down the street with the right turn signal on all the time and always turning left, or, the flat tire, it's just call it as it is. No judgment. Just call it as it is.
So is that possible to do with self, or do I got to pay somebody $300 an hour to be my coach?
Yes. The answer is yes. You can do both. I think, just like having depth perception, it always helps to have a second perspective, as long as that second perspective is trustworthy and reliable and using the right, the right lens, and has that same field of vision that you're hoping for. You don't want to ask a blind person if, something, if your attire is good. It's, so if I were to go up to Tyler or Mike or Will and ask them questions about, about life and what to do, I could trust that response. I think I could trust that response. But if I were to go up to somebody whose values did not align with mine, then it wouldn't be worth it.
There's some danger there.
Yeah, you gotta find what resonates and recognize the dissonance and really make sure that.
And can we drop hey Tyler, I'm asking for a friend, or hey Will, hypothetically speaking, let's say somebody really screwed up.
That's my go-to line. We'll call him Skyler. Okay.
For me, it's Ike.
Yeah.
No, but I think to Will's point earlier, Will talked about having the right people around you. And I think that's important. Like I'm a believer in accountability, and I love the idea of accountability, right? In work, we need to be accountable. In our spiritual lives, we need to be accountable. And I think that if we're trying to improve ourselves, I think having people that are on that same pursuit in their lives around you, there's some accountability that can be had there, and I feel lucky in that I have, a group of people like you guys and others in my life that are willing to say to me, Tyler, like that, I'm not sure what you're thinking right now. Right. So I think having those being able to have those kind of honest conversations is important, and I have those with my wife, and I have those together. Right. And more often it's her saying, Tyler, what's going on? It's not right. And I have those kind of conversations with my kids too, like, hey, this isn't jiving with what we're, talk to me, tell me where you're at. What are you thinking right now? What's going through your head? How did you arrive at this spot? I think that level of accountability is important. And I was just talking to a group of young people a couple of weeks ago, and I was telling them, like, accountability is, in my opinion, is love. That's what accountability is. I love you enough to tell you that you're doing a great job, and I love you enough to tell you that you probably need to make some adjustments, right? And both things, I think, get you to a higher place if we're willing to hold each other accountable.
Will's got all the answers.
Well, I've got some things I love that quote by Pete Carroll, right? Because you do have to know yourself in order to be able to grow yourself. The thing, though, that I keep coming back to is you got to do it for the right reason. If you're doing it so that you're growing as an individual and you improve the lives of the people that are in your life by growing, I think that's a very admirable reason to look for and search out that growth. I hate to say it, Mike, but why would you change yourself for a job?
Oh, no. Yeah, it's not. No, yeah.
Here's the thing.
I think change it's defined.
Right. And the thing is that Mike Freeman is this amazing guy. I watch you at work and I see the things that you do and I see the passion you bring. And I don't want you to go, I need to be someone different for this other job. Because if you're someone different, if you're not the authentic Mike Freeman, then that job wasn't meant for you.
Yeah.
You got to be you in that job. Right. And so
you just got to know who you is.
Exactly. Right. And if there's things about you that bug you, because that is a roadblock for yourself to feel like you're making the impact you want to feel, then by all means make that change. But if you're feeling like, I'm just not this other person was, that's not the reason. Is another person, So to me, it's like, I love the person you are. And when I grow up,
I love you too, Will Barnett.
Right? When I grow up, I want to be like you. And so, I love the idea that, we're not static. We have the capacity to change and grow. But I also think that if we don't do it for the right reason, then we're going to be off the mark, that we're not going to grow in an appropriate way that's going to help us help our families and our friends and our other meaningful relationships get to a place where it needs to be.
Anybody got a recipe for easy growth? I would like.
The quicker you get it wrong, the quicker you'll grow.
Yeah. I've been 5'6" since high school. I don't know how to grow. My hair fell out, 12 years ago, and I still can't grow it. So my Asian genes like sabotage any beard I try to grow. So yeah, I don't know anything about growth.
Wow. Will is the last guy we want to talk to about growth.
Exactly. Well, the one thing I figured out, that if I can't reach 6 feet tall, I can go for wide. So, that's my growth plan now. Okay.
Yeah. Well, so I wish there was an easy way, right? I'm having conversations with kids, and this growth thing is not, it's not easy. And you wish you could shelter them from it. Abe the other day on a call, he's been praying to learn how to submit his will, right? I want to learn how to submit my will. Careful with that one.
Look
right?
out.
Look out. So I want to submit my will. Heavenly Father, help me learn how to submit. Person from his last area decides to get baptized, and he's 20 minutes away. Hey, President, can I go to this baptism? No, you can't go to that baptism. He gets a picture of the baptism, and his companion that was in the area, who moved 6 hours away, was in the water. Right?
I love that.
20 minutes, no permission, 6 hours, permission. And it's just like,
I love that.
It is a custom rolled up.
Yeah. That's an amazing lesson,
this
man.
one.
Yeah. I love that.
That is a custom made one, right?
But
there.
You're watching his face, right? You're watching his face, and it's like, what the dad? Like, this is submission, son. Move on.
Yeah.
I'm coming across like some cold DB, right? Like, just, Dad, that's what you got for me? Move on. Yeah.
Yeah.
Move on.
Yeah. Welcome to submission, man. There you go. I mean, you struggle against it. It only makes it worse. You know what I mean? It's like, submission is you got to accept that, and you got to go.
It's like that. How many times on The Richest Men in Town have we come up with that current Bush story?
Yeah.
Like, I'm the gardener here.
Yeah.
You don't know. You don't know what we're building here.
I got to tell you though, I had almost an identical experience as a missionary, and that experience changed everything for me 10 years down the road in how I look at leadership and everything else. It changed everything for me. And I was not happy when it happened, but as I reflect on that, man, it changed everything for me. So I love it. I love these kind of painful lessons, man.
Yeah. I think the things that changed everything for me, there's nothing sweet on that playlist.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
Like, I think wins, I don't remember.
Yeah.
It's the losses. It's those setbacks, setting up comebacks. But we're in so Ether 1227, right? Weak things become strong. We go right to, strong. We go right to strong. I want to be strong. It's like, we got to focus on that first half. I mean, so many of us kind of quit halfway through that process. Like, no, there was something amazing through that.
Well, I always think about like DNC 121, right? It's like talking about endurance. And then there's that caveat at the end, like, if you endure it well, right? There's like two levels here. Like, I endure things a lot, and I will bitch and moan the entire time, right, as I'm doing it. But then there's the next level of, can you endure it and endure it well, right? Then I think there's something different that comes from that, and I'm still working on that.
And I think the growth is in the struggle, right? I mean, if we get a free pass every time, man, then we don't really learn. If we have to struggle a little bit and kind of work our way through it. As painful as it is at the time, I think when we come out the other side of it, we're a changed person.
And I think you're right. And when back to Tyler's earlier point, when we're struggling, it's like, that's all I need somebody to tell me. That's all I need somebody to remind me. Like, oh man, bro, you're going through it right now, but check this out, right? You imagine what you're going to be able to do for other people going through this? Or
Yeah.
check this out. Don't you see the value in this suffering a little bit? I mean, suffering, like I'm gonna put that in air quotes, right?
Yeah,
Mike
right.
Freeman is not suffering. There is
Right.
there is true suffering, and then there's what Mike Freeman's going through, right? But still, those difficulties, just that outside ear to say, what was it? Non-judgmental, Peter?
Non-judgmental observation.
Non-judgmental observation. Like, hey, let's zoom out here a little bit. Let's put this in the context of God's plan for us, right? I mean, got it. Okay, cool. Thank you.
So
I think what does the angel tell Jesus Christ in the Garden of Gethsemane? What is that angel possibly going to whisper in the ear of the Savior in his moment of need that the Savior doesn't already know? Right? Maybe that angel's not even saying anything. It's just a presence of a friend.
Just a hand on a shoulder.
Just a hand on a shoulder, like, I got you.
I
Gordon DeWitt, that ministry of presence.
Yeah, I think being able to sometimes I think a lot of times we want to come in with the solution, right? And I think that sometimes the solution is just sitting it together, and we just kind of that understanding of, hey, I feel where you're at, and I wish I could change it, but I'll be here, in it. So, and that's not an easy thing to do. But
yeah, I think as we were having the opportunity to listen to some student voice earlier in the day, and just this idea of like, how are we approaching the issues? Are we just attacking them? Right? Are we just attacking this issue in our life? Like, I got to freaking get this thing over with. Are we like studying it? Right? What is that? Like, you got an hour to solve a problem and spend 55 minutes studying. Like, I'm butchering that. Is that Lincoln? Is that Einstein? What is that? Right? But like,
keep going, man. We'll try to
I don't know.
You gotta cut that. You got, hey, editor, you got to cut that. But the idea is, I'm going to spend 95% of the time knowing the issue, and then I'm going to get into solution versus flipping it and coming in and saying, let's solve this problem. Whether that's in our own lives and the lives of our family members, like every once in a while, it's just like, talk to me about this, right? Help me understand what it is you're going through. Let's figure this beast out.
Yeah, that's a tough one, man. That's tough. I agree with you 100%.
Well, on paper, it sounds easy, right?
Yeah. It sounds super easy, but that's so tough. And I guess my question for you guys is, how, so far there's been some real great things said, and I love every bit of it. What's that look like, filtering that down to the kids, to the people that you love, right? Because there is value. And I, when I was a kid, my mom used to say, well, you can't do that. Well, why? Because I said so, right? Because I said so. But, sometimes it's like, you have to trust that the person ahead of you has gone through it and they're trying to help you out. But how do you pass those lessons learned, or this knowledge of self-evaluation, trying to be better and having some grace with yourself? How do we pass that on to the ones that mean the most?
Man, sometimes you got to let them touch the stove.
Yeah.
Because I tell you, I remember when my kids were 14 and I wanted to send them to NASA because they knew everything, right? And I went from being, the intelligent dad to the dumbest guy in the house. And it didn't matter what I said. If I had the answer and I knew it was the right answer and I told it to them, they wouldn't believe me. So sometimes they had to touch the stove, and
Yeah.
I think sometimes that when they go, oh man, Dad did know what he was talking about. It builds that credit a little bit. Next time they might listen.
Yeah.
And so, but of course you're getting this from a guy that, the only time they really call me is when they want a recipe or like a Netflix password or something. When they have real problems, they call their mom. So.
Or a tow truck.
Yeah, that's funny.
So put it in context, guys. I mean,
I don't know, Peter, thoughts? How do we pass it on?
Gosh, I don't know. I mean, I'm still trying to figure that out. I mean, my kids are 14 to 21, and it's different for all of them. Some are more trusting, some are more contrarian, some are, you know, it's I think you hit it though when you said sometimes you just got to sit with them. That ministry of presence that was it Gordon
Yeah.
Dewitt
Mhm.
talked about, and just spending the time with them, and maybe you're just sitting there talking, helping talk through with them on situations, not necessarily trying to be the person with the answer all the time, but trying to help them develop a pattern for finding the answer. So, like they always ask, well, why am I going to school? I'm never going to use anything that I learn in school, which is probably true. But you go there to learn how to learn,
You're
right?
talking to two educators, Peter. Be careful. You know.
Fair enough. Well, I'll talk to you at
We
least,
got we
Tyler.
got work to do. We got work to do.
We do.
So
Definitely wants to change.
you learn how to learn, and you go through stuff, and it's not necessarily trying to find the exact right answer every time, but what are you doing to get to that answer? What are you doing um to discover what that might be? What are you doing to try things out? Are you experimenting on, well, maybe I need to do this better, maybe I need to do that, maybe I need to stop doing this, or are you like that fish going straight into the net and just let's just keep hitting that net, and maybe I'll pop through the other side. But I don't know. I'm still trying to, like I said, I'm still trying to figure it out with some of them. But there is a lot of, I think, just helping them grow through it, helping them, in the process they're going to learn about them, and I think that's probably the biggest thing, whether they get it right or wrong. Did they learn about them? And I try to ask them, when they complain about something. Oh, I had this happen today at school, or I had this happen at work. Well, what did you learn from it? And most of the time, the answer is nothing. But maybe if they can learn something from it, they'll learn more about them, and they won't have that issue in the future. Or when something like that comes up, they will have a foundation or a process to fall back on to not have to panic, but knowing that there's a process to get through things, that there's um, things that they can learn about them, that they know more about them, and
Yeah.
I'm learning more about me still too. So who knows?
Well, I like that. Learn how to learn. I mean, that's important, right?
So I got an idea.
Yeah.
So Tyler, I've loved from time to time when you would something that you've shared a couple of times before is this idea that I find confidence moving forward by remembering past victories, right? And then I also love this thought of like, hey, sometimes we don't do a very good job sharing the struggles of adulting,
Mm-hmm.
right? We're in the war room with our wives and we're like, what the heck are we going to do? And then we come up with a plan and we open it up and it's like, let's go to ice cream, right? Like everything's great here. And I think something that's crossed my mind a couple of times the last couple of days is this thought of like our trophy wall. Like, do we ever let kids in on things that we've conquered, right? Like some of those, David finds confidence in Goliath because he's had prior experience and he actually says it out loud. This is going to happen because that happened and that happened and that happened. I wonder if sometimes our kids, and kind of going to that Ether 1227, right? Like, have we ever let people in on, look, the person you see right here, in all humility, let me tell you about a time, and sharing that struggle and the story of the overcome might give them a little bit of maybe a model. I know story is powerful.
Mm-hmm.
We've got scriptures full of stories for a reason. They teach the principle that we want them to learn. So maybe, just maybe, we can take inventory on some of those things that give us confidence now. And in our conversation with them, handing it down and be like, let me tell you how dad did this. Let me tell you how mom and dad did this. Right. And I'm not a good storyteller when it comes to my kids. Yeah, they've heard all the kind of the sexy ones, but all the dramatic ones, but not really teaching too many principles. you know, like I think I can get better at telling stories, especially ones that involve me and mom.
Less about you running from the cops and more about you. And yeah, I got you. Yeah.
Yeah. A little less on the past transgressions and more on the, overcoming some things.
Yeah.
Here I am thinking, okay, I've got some fun answers, and I've got nothing but mad respect for Peter, who's like, hey, I'm gonna work through this with my kids. I'm gonna ask them when something happens, what did you learn from it? And I'm the one going, hey, let them touch the stove, and
but they learn from it.
Or yeah, exactly. When something, instead of what do you learn from it, it's like, oh man, that sucks. Yeah, I get it. I've got some parenting issues here. I've got to work on some things, man.
But think about when you're gone. How cool would it be when you're gone for your kids to remember he was always asking if I learned something? Like something bad would happen, and his response, like clockwork, would be, you learn anything from it? Like dadisms, right? What are those dadisms that, like honestly, Tyler and I got a very touching voicemail message.
Yeah.
From a child of a guest, and
adult
that
child,
was
right. Yeah.
Yeah. And that was her take. Yeah. Like what you put down, I'm going to be able to treasure and cherish forever when he's gone. Like what you put down was so my dad that when he's gone someday, I'm going to pull up this episode and I'm going to be able to remember. And nothing he shared with you wasn't something I've heard a million times, right? Yeah. I love that part. What are our kids going to remember that we said a million times? Hey, did you learn something? I love
that.
That's a cool.
I loved, and what something that Peter said made me think of that voice message too. And, she'd said, you helped me rediscover a treasure that I had allowed to collect some dust. And I thought, man, that's a cool thing as a parent, right? You've poured it all in for 40 some years, right? And those words have always been rattling around.
Yeah. And sometimes it sounds like Charlie Brown teacher, right?
Mm-hmm.
But when you're gone, it will be crystal.
Yeah.
Because it was consistent. Sorry, Will, you're out of luck. They're going to remember Dad told me to touch the stove.
Yeah, that's the one.
They're going to have the calluses to prove it, is the thing.
People have these signs when you walk into their home. It's live, love, laugh. Theirs will be, my dad told me to touch the stove.
Go ahead. Turn it on. Touch it.
Wait till it's really red.
Yeah. I love it, you guys. I think I appreciate the conversation tonight, and I just appreciate the wisdom represented in these 4 squares on my screen. Now, whether other people will agree with me about wisdom or not, who cares? It's
the test
it's our podcast. We call it whatever we want.
The test is always here.
That's
right?
it.
If it's here, it's good.
But the reality is that the struggle is ongoing. And it's funny because I remember when I had really young kids, I always had this mindset of like, okay, like when they're this age, I can do this with them. And when they're this age, we'll be doing this. And now they're all out of my house almost. And I'm like, shoot, but I still love the opportunity to pour into them. And quite frankly, some of my motivation to take the next step up the mountain is so that I can still look back at the ones behind me and say, hey, here's what I'm learning on the trail.
This way. Yeah, it's this way.
Well, I'll tell you what, having adult children, I look at this now as an opportunity for them to teach me.
And
a lot of times I see the steps they take in life, and I might not have chosen the same things that they choose, but at the same time, when they talk to me about it and they give me some rationale behind why they make these choices, it helps me to kind of broaden my lens and see through their eyes. And it's a little humbling to think that at one point I thought I was going to shape them in a way that was going to steer them and make them into a particular type of person. But what they've turned out to be is so much more than I ever could have hoped for. And they teach me every day that, man, there's so much more to being a dad than just bossing your kids around, telling them what to do, keeping them safe, providing. There's so much more to the relationship, and it really is two-way, because I've gotten so much out of being a dad. I continue to, but it's just different now. As an adult, watching these kids become men, it's so humbling that I got to be a part of their childhood, and these men that they're becoming, I'm like, they're good dudes. They're guys I would hang out with. And I think that more than anything is like a testament to how good their mom is. Because,
Yeah.
man, I tell you,
Yeah.
they are good guys, and I would not hesitate to hang out with them at any time.
Yeah, that myth of shaping kids.
They shape
Like, I
us.
don't know who sold me that, but like that's a biggest pile of manure. Like, I think there's unfold, right? But that shaping thing, not happening.
And if we approach it with some humility, then we allow them to shape us, right?
Amen. Yeah. Amen.
Wow,
Well, I think that you guys ever, one of my favorite scenes is at the end of River Runs Through It. I don't know if you guys have seen A River Runs Through It. Peter's
Classic,
giving me a
all
look.
time.
Peter's
My
giving me a
wife made me
look.
watch it once. I couldn't recall it though, so to be honest.
Next time, lie to me, Peter. Just nod your head and lie to me.
I always get that one mixed up with Legends of the Fall. I don't know.
Yeah. So the boys grow up and they learn to fly fish, and they learn the science of fly fishing and the rhythm and the technique of fly fishing. But then at the end of the movie, as grown men, one of the boys just happens to be Goldilocks Brad Pitt, Montana sun shining through the blonde hair, lying in the water, but he turns it into an art. He breaks the rules. He doesn't follow what his father taught him, and he does it his way. And it's just a cool thing to think. We teach them, we raise them up in the way, and then not that they have to break all dad's rules, but they make it theirs, right? They do it their way, and it turns into something so much more beautiful than you would have ever imagined. Just not the script that you maybe had in mind.
Well, I think that's the hope, right? Is that you're raising kids, and I want my kids to be better than me on every level.
Not hard for me.
Well, not hard for me either. They're already all there, so that's sad that I had such a low bar. But but I want them to be better on every level. So when I see the thing, it's like you said, Will, they're teaching you. My kids come home and we're having conversations, and I'm just like, I'm blown away. I'm just like, these people they're smarter than I am. They're better than I am. They're more, they're more compassionate than I ever was at that age. They've just got a different view of things, and I love their view of things, And so when that's happening, when you're in that moment, you're like, oh shoot, this is good stuff. It almost makes you forget about the pain that you had going through to get them out that door. You know what I mean? So, but it's a great thing. It's a great thing. And I love that sentiment, Will, that at the end of the day, it's like, I want to hang out with my people. When they come home, I am psyched. And when they leave, I am bummed. I'm just like, oh man, they're going again. This is, they're so much more fun now than they ever have been,
Right.
So that's a good thing.
Are you crying at airports? You crying are you crying when you're saying goodbye?
No, but my heart
Like
hurts.
Kelly's crying and we're seeing her in 3 weeks.
Yeah, no.
You know what I mean?
I cried when they left on missions. I cried when they came home. But yeah, when they leave my house to go back to school, whether it's 3 weeks or 3 months, or my heart hurts a little bit because you miss that. You miss that interaction.
To me, though, like it's almost like when I jumped on the call, right? Like just that idea of like, but I know the adventures out there.
Oh,
Like
yeah.
every time I'll tell Kelly we're leaving the airport, she's bawling. I'll be like, ships weren't designed for the harbor.
Yeah.
Right? Like that quote, right?
Yeah,
Like
100%.
it's cool to have them here, but this is harbor. Out there is the people they need to meet, the things they need to learn, the struggles. Like go.
Yeah.
Launch them out. Come on back to harbor. Lick your wounds.
Knock the
We'll
barnacles
pay for
off.
your
Yeah.
food.
Yeah.
But ships weren't made to hang out in the harbor. Life's for living. And that goes for old people too. Right? It goes for old people too.
Do you know any old people, Mike? I don't know.
It's just that harbor, that couch is so comfortable.
Yeah.
Right? That couch is so I had the opportunity to share some thoughts at state conference, and that was kind of a rant that I went on. Was like, yeah, it's hard. Yeah, this is hard. Yeah, that's hard. All these things that are required of us or asked of us, it's hard, but like, who we following?
Yeah, I just love that whole thing. You know, Abby sent an email the other day and she referenced First Nephi 17, and that's one of my favorite things. You know, it's like how difficult.
Yeah,
that
you replied
was.
all.
I did. What a rookie move that was, bro. But you know, hey,
I was like, whoa, Tyler must really like these verses. He replied all.
But I love that thought. You know, it's hard and it's miserable, but how blessed were we in the middle of that, right? And that perspective that you have, you know, is a big deal. So
how blessed were we?
I love that idea.
Who's got it better than us?
Nobody. Parting thoughts, Peter. What do you got for us? Drop some science on us, would you?
I'll pass. I'll let you go to Will first. Let me collect some of my.
Okay.
Rub a couple brain cells together.
Will, parting thoughts?
Parting thoughts, man. I don't know. I just I enjoy the conversations that we have because as we kind of uncover some things, it just, you know, shines a little light on a little nugget of truth for me, you know, and sometimes I'll throw an offering out there to see how you guys kind of receive it. And you know, it's always interesting that, you know, we build meaning from each other's comments, and for me that's a potential for growth too. And I love that, and I love being in a space with people that, even though we're so very different, you know, we bring so many different perspectives into the space. We still have a commonality in knowing that we can become better. And so I love that fact that we can lean on each other, open up a little bit and just say, hey, you know, these are the things that make me tick. These are the things I've struggled with. And to me, just I have not felt like I've wasted time by having a great conversation with you guys, you know. And I know we'll have some people that'll listen to this conversation and they'll scratch their heads and they'll be like, what? Did I miss something? But that's okay, because there's also going to be someone that'll be like, hey, I really like that. You know, I know the last time we talked, I was blown away by somebody that quoted me to myself. And so that just, you know, it's a very minor thing, but at the same time, I was just like, wow, something I said actually resonated with somebody. But I also think that, you know, the potential for growth here in the conversation is just fantastic. And I'm grateful that you guys open the door and invite me in.
Yeah. Well, we're grateful you're here. And I love that thought of, you know, this is one of my favorite things, just having conversations with you guys. You know, your words mean a lot. Someone said to me, you know, isn't it cool that that people are impacted by your podcast and things that you say? And I said, you know what's cool? That people are impacted by people that have impacted me. And that's it. You know, I love the idea of being to introduce you guys and the words that you say, because it's meaningful to me, and it's cool that other people get to hear that. So, Mike, parting shots before we put Peter on.
I do love I love everything about the word better. I think that is the call,
Mm.
right? I think that's why people tune in. When they do tune in, they find something valuable, because that's the struggle, that's the challenge. There's vulnerability in that word, right? There's self-awareness, like Peter was saying. Hopefully I didn't take Peter's parting thought, but like just that idea of like, where are you? In order to get to better, you got to know.
Yeah.
You gotta know where we are. And I think, I think the stakes are high, guys. Like Tyler, we got cars attached to our engine. You know what I mean? And there's this false notion that dad might be struggling, but no one in the family is gonna know. Like that's not accurate at all, right? When we bump, everyone bumps. And when we get close to the edge, others following behind might go a little further. And so I think that there is that challenge. I think that's why I do love being a husband. That's why I do love being a dad. That's what George Bailey stumbles on in the end. Oh, wow. All of this really does matter. How I show up, how I interact with the people around me. All of it gives green light. Am I building, giving green light for other people around me to build? Am I murmuring, giving other people green light to just be like, this whole thing freaking sucks, right? In the end, we're terminal. This thing that we're doing matters. How we do it matters. What we say to our kids matters. Tyler, when you texted me, it's like, man, I hope my kids say that about me. Like, yeah. But the only way they're going to say that about us is if we live like that guy right now.
Yeah.
Right. Mm-hmm. There's something powerful there. So if I can hang out for an hour and sharpen my knife with you guys, I'm in.
All right, Peter, no pressure, but you are the last guy. And, I mean, people are going to be hanging on this right now. So I don't,
You got to drop some wisdom here.
So I know we've talked about, growth and becoming and, putting work in. And one of the mantras that it's one of my favorite quotes ever. And I have no idea who said it. So maybe someone out there that's smarter than me can tell me.
We got a research department.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Please have the RMIT research department on this. It's something to the effect of, don't get mad at the results you didn't get because of the work you didn't do. Mm-hmm. And so, when I'm trying to, accomplish a goal and I'm not getting there, let's look back. Did I put the work in? Well, obviously I didn't put in enough. Otherwise I'm not there. So it's really just, and kind of going back to that non-judgmental observation. It's, what's the reality of the situation? What am I going to do what's the work that needs to get put in? It's knowing who am I, so I know where I'm going to go to and, how I'm going to become better. But you got to put the work in to do it. This isn't, instant gratification is everywhere, but becoming is not an instant gratification process. It's a lifelong process. It's a this life and the next life long process. So that's my mantra, and I'm sticking to it.
Man,
yeah, it's grandma's spaghetti sauce, not SpaghettiOs, right?
Right.
Becoming. I love that. Man, Peter was like t-shirt guy there. Like I would wear I would wear t-shirts of two things Peter just dropped.
Yeah. I mean, I was nervous when you started talking, but it turned out really good.
Well, I'll license it to the RMIT clothing department if we
okay, yeah. We'll get our crack team on that.
The merch.
No, I love what you guys have said. And, I think, Mike, about that note on my son's wall that was written, or on his door that was written, "What's at stake?" And a list of things that are important. And I think that having these conversations helps us to identify those things that are at stake, those things that are most important. And ultimately that's where the energy needs to be spent, and this has been a worthwhile bit of time for me tonight, for sure.
Yeah, it has been fun. It has been fun. Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you for off the cuff tonight.
Anytime, guys. Thank you. And Peter, it was a real pleasure getting to meet you tonight.
Good idea, Ernie. A toast. To my big brother George, the richest man in town.